Imagine this, my friends, a tiny drone built in a nation battered by war and hunger cuts through the billion-dollar defenses of one of the most powerful states on earth. Tel Aviv, stunned, silenced, paralyzed. This is not just a military event, it's a metaphor for our world today, where the powerless are learning to challenge power itself, not with wealth, but with will, wit, and defiance. The city of Tel Aviv, often described as Israel's beating technological heart, was thrown into chaos when a Yemeni drone pierced through its renowned layers of defense. For years, Israel has prided itself on possessing one of the most advanced and impenetrable air defense systems in the world, an intricate network of radar systems, anti-missile batteries, and real-time surveillance capable of neutralizing threats before they ever reach its borders. Yet, on this day, that confidence was shattered. A low-cost unmanned aircraft from a war-torn nation managed to slip through this web of precision, sending shockwaves not just through Israel, but through intelligence communities worldwide. It wasn't just the explosion or disruption that rattled Tel Aviv. It was the symbolism. How could a modest drone, crafted with limited resources in a country struggling under years of conflict and blockade, paralyze one of the most fortified cities on the planet? Residents described the moment as surreal. A sudden siren blaring through the city, followed by the unfamiliar sound of drones overhead, and then an eerie silence that blanketed the streets. For a few critical hours, flights were grounded, communication lines were disrupted, and the illusion of absolute security was replaced with an unsettling realization no fortress is impenetrable. The Israeli government swiftly moved to contain panic, assuring citizens that the situation was under control, but the psychological impact lingered. The idea that a drone from Yemen, a nation devastated by war and poverty, could bypass the Iron Dome's technological might was not merely a military anomaly, it was a strategic humiliation. Analysts were quick to point out that this incident represented far more than a tactical failure. It revealed a broader vulnerability in modern defense paradigms. The reliance on high-tech solutions has created blind spots that low-budget ingenuity can exploit. In a world where a drone costing a few $1,000s can outmaneuver a defense network worth billions, the balance of power begins to shift. What Tel Aviv experienced was not just a strike, it was a message, a reminder that even the most powerful nations are not invincible, and that innovation born from desperation can outsmart sophistication built on complacency. As daylight returned to Tel Aviv, the city resumed its rhythm, but the tremor beneath the surface remained. This was more than an isolated event. It was a wake-up call, a stark illustration of how modern warfare, driven by technology and audacity, is rewriting the rules of global power. The shockwave that rippled through Tel Aviv was not confined to the immediate aftermath of the Yemeni drone strike. It carried with it a deeper, more symbolic resonance. This event has become a potent emblem of a shifting global order, one where the traditional hierarchies of power are being quietly, yet unmistakably, rewritten. For decades. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East has been dominated by powerful states with immense military budgets and access to cutting-edge technology. But the image of a small, resource-deprived nation like Yemen striking at the heart of Israel has pierced through the illusion that might alone determines influence. It signaled something larger than a single attack. It signaled the rise of a new era where defiance, ingenuity, and persistence are becoming the weapons of the marginalized. This strike was more than a breach of Israeli airspace. It was a symbolic act of resistance. It was the underdog reminding the world that desperation can be as powerful as domination. Yemen, long seen as a victim of foreign intervention and humanitarian catastrophe, momentarily flipped the narrative. In that single stunning moment, a drone launched from a nation under siege managed to command the world's attention and challenge the psychological supremacy of one of the most advanced militaries on Earth. That imbalance, the weak confronting the strong, the poor unsettling the powerful, is the essence of a global power shift in motion. The balance is no longer determined solely by who has the bigger arsenal, but by who can adapt faster, think sharper, and strike where it hurts most. Political analysts are calling this incident a warning shot across the geopolitical establishment. When power becomes concentrated in the hands of the few, history shows that resistance inevitably finds a way to speak. In this case, it spoke through the hum of a drone. The implications reach beyond the borders of Israel and Yemen. They stretch into every region where inequality, occupation, and disenfranchisement breed defiance. What unfolded in Tel Aviv was not just a regional provocation, it was a global statement. The monopoly of strength that once defined superpowers is crumbling under the weight of innovation born from necessity. As the dust settled, world leaders were left grappling with an uncomfortable truth. The architecture of dominance is beginning to tilt. The Yemeni drone that pierced Tel Aviv's defenses did more than disrupt a city. It disrupted the narrative of who holds power and how it can be challenged in the 21st century. The Yemeni drone strike on Tel Aviv has rapidly become a defining case study in the evolution of modern warfare, an embodiment of asymmetric warfare at its most striking. The concept is not new history, has seen countless examples where the weak confront the strong using creativity and unpredictability to offset overwhelming military might. But what unfolded in Israel's skies marked a sharp and sobering escalation of that principle in the digital age. A low-cost drone, likely assembled from commercially available parts, managed to penetrate one of the world's most sophisticated defense shields. It was not merely a failure of interception, it was a redefinition of what power means on the battlefield. The shock was not in the explosion itself, but in the fact that such a small, inexpensive machine could expose billion-dollar vulnerabilities. What makes this incident so compelling is its profound symbolism. It underscores the growing obsolescence of conventional military dominance in an era where innovation and adaptability reign supreme. For decades, nations have poured vast sums into advanced defense systems, assuming that superiority in technology guaranteed security. Yet, here we are. A drone possibly costing less than a luxury car manages to paralyze a city shielded by one of the world's most expensive defense architectures. That imbalance of cost versus impact lies at the heart of asymmetric warfare. It is warfare where strategy, resourcefulness, and timing eclipse brute force and wealth. Military analysts and political observers alike are calling this a tipping point moment. The event in Tel Aviv demonstrates that smaller actors, once considered insignificant in global power equations, can now challenge state militaries through precision, persistence, and psychological warfare. Every time a drone slips past radar detection, it doesn't just strike a target, it strikes confidence. And confidence, in military terms, is as vital as firepower. This was not simply an act of aggression, it was a calculated reminder that dominance can be disrupted, that fear can be manufactured just as effectively as weapons. The lesson is clear. Asymmetric warfare has matured. It no longer depends solely on guerrilla tactics or surprise ambushes. It now operates through technology, code, and creativity. The Yemeni drone strike has proven that even in a world dominated by high-tech superpowers, the smallest actors can wield extraordinary influence. The battlefield is no longer defined by territory or troop size. It's defined by who can think differently, act decisively, and adapt faster than their adversaries. The shock of the Yemeni drone strike on Tel Aviv did not end when the smoke cleared. It rippled outward, reaching trading floors, diplomatic circles, and defense industries across the world. Beyond the immediate military implications, this event has triggered serious economic and political reverberations that Israel, and indeed the region, cannot easily dismiss. Markets react not only to explosions, but to uncertainty. When a nation once seen as invulnerable is suddenly exposed, investor confidence trembles. The perception of safety, both physical and economic, is a crucial pillar of stability, and this incident struck directly at that foundation as Tel Aviv, a hub for technology, innovation, and international investment, came to a temporary standstill. The world witnessed how swiftly a single act of defiance could shake the aura of control that underpins a powerful nation's economy. In the political sphere, the fallout has been equally complex. Israel's leadership now faces intense scrutiny, both domestically and internationally. How could a small, war-torn country like Yemen breach one of the most advanced defense systems in the world? For the Israeli government, which has long used security strength as a cornerstone of its legitimacy, this question is more than rhetorical. It is existential. Public confidence in defense institutions has been quietly eroded, and the political class must now navigate an uncomfortable truth. Technological superiority does not always equate to security. Opposition parties are already capitalizing on the event, framing it as a symptom of overconfidence and misallocation of resources, while regional adversaries interpret it as an opening, a potential shift in deterrence dynamics. Economically, the implications are equally striking. Israel's defense sector, one of its most profitable industries and a key component of its export economy, now faces pressure to deliver new assurances and innovations. Meanwhile, defense contractors around the world are watching closely, recognizing that this single drone strike could influence global arms trade patterns. If expensive defense systems can be outmaneuvered by low-cost drones, investors and governments alike will demand more cost-effective solutions, potentially reshaping the future of military spending. What happened over Tel Aviv was not just a strike, it was a stress test for modern economies built on the illusion of absolute security. The drone did not only pierce Israel's defenses, it pierced the confidence of markets, the credibility of policymakers, and the myth that wealth and technology can indefinitely insulate a nation from vulnerability. The Yemeni drone strike that momentarily paralyzed Tel Aviv was far more than a tactical maneuver. It was a message. It carried with it a bold declaration from a nation often dismissed as broken and voiceless, a nation buried under years of war, famine, and foreign intervention. In that single act, Yemen announced to the world that it still exists, not merely as a victim of global neglect, but as an actor capable of shaping headlines and challenging narratives. For years, the international community has viewed Yemen through the lens of humanitarian crisis and geopolitical tragedy. But this moment turned that narrative on its head. A country presumed to be too shattered to act demonstrated a level of strategic competence and audacity that reverberated across continents. The drone's flight path was not just military, it was political theater of the highest order. At its core, this strike symbolized the power of defiance. Yemen's message was clear, even when stripped of wealth, infrastructure, and allies. The will to resist can transcend technological disadvantage. Every revolution in history has been born from such a spirit, from the refusal of the oppressed to remain invisible. And in this case, that refusal took the form of a machine in the sky, small yet loud enough to be heard in every capital that had once written Yemen off as a lost cause. It was an act that said, "You may bomb our cities, but you cannot silence our resolve." The political implications of this message are profound. Across the Arab world and beyond, many watched the incident not merely as a breach of Israeli defenses, but as a symbolic victory for the underrepresented. Yemen's defiance resonated with those who have lived under the shadow of foreign dominance and unequal power dynamics. The strike became, in many ways, a rallying cry, a reminder that power is not solely defined by wealth or weaponry, but by the courage to disrupt. Even nations with limited means can alter the balance of perception, and in geopolitics, perception is often half the battle won. In a region long shaped by the decisions of stronger states, Yemen's drone was more than an aircraft. It was a statement of sovereignty. It declared that even from the ruins, a nation can rise to assert its presence and challenge the silence imposed upon it. The world heard Yemen's voice that day, not through diplomacy or dialogue, but through the unmistakable hum of defiance carried by the wind over Tel Aviv. The world's reaction to the Yemeni drone strike on Tel Aviv has been a complex blend of astonishment, unease, and introspection. What began as a regional flashpoint has swiftly evolved into a global talking point, forcing policymakers, military strategists, and ordinary citizens alike to reconsider the fragility of the modern world order. International media outlets scrambled to analyze how such a modest, low-cost operation could momentarily neutralize one of the most advanced defense infrastructures on the planet. Governments across Europe, Asia, and North America watched closely, recognizing that this event was not an isolated breach, but a symptom of a broader transformation in warfare, power, and resistance. The hum of that drone carried a message far louder than the explosion it caused. It revealed how the imbalance of global power is being steadily rewritten from the bottom up. In capitals from Washington to Riyadh, the strike sparked urgent discussions about security and deterrence in an age where technological innovation is no longer monopolized by the wealthy or the powerful. Intelligence agencies and defense analysts now face an unsettling reality. The tools of warfare are democratizing. The same low-cost technologies once dismissed as crude or improvised are now capable of bypassing multi-billion-dollar defense systems. This realization has sent ripples through military institutions worldwide, compelling nations to reconsider how they measure strength and vulnerability. The world has entered an era where ingenuity can rival investment and where defiance can outweigh dominance. But the lessons go deeper than defense strategy. The drone strike has ignited a moral and political debate about why such acts of defiance occur in the first place. It has forced a reckoning with the inequalities that fuel resentment and the desperation that drives innovation under siege. Commentators from global think tanks argue that events like this are not born in isolation. They are the product of decades of imbalance, intervention, and neglect. When one side builds walls, the other finds wings. And that, perhaps, is the most profound lesson of all: suppression breeds adaptation. Around the world, leaders are now faced with a sobering question. How long can power rely on technology without addressing justice? The silence that followed the drone's impact in Tel Aviv was not just fear, it was reflection. A quiet acknowledgement that the rules of global power are changing, and those once silenced are beginning to rewrite them.